Welcome to the
Welcome.
webinar.
Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the EFA Remodel Renovation Competition, a SAGE webinar that brings together winners from the 2020 competition to explore their specific projects and how they approach their unique environments to create spectacular new settings. My name is Rick D'Amico, and I'll be moderating this webinar session. I'm the Vice President of Development for the Bel Air Group, and I'm proud to be a SAGE board member. I would like to first introduce Stacy Peters, the Director of Design for Faulkner Design Group and a 2020 juror. Faulkner Design is also a past Renovation Remodel project winner, and their firm has won numerous EFA design awards. So it's a pleasure to be working with Stacy today as we present to you all of the award winners. At this time, I'd like Stacy to please say your name and who you're with.
Hi, my name is Stacy Peters, and I'm the Director of Design with Faulkner Design Group.
And Stacy, would you mind introducing the project winners, please?
Sure. So today we have Derek Perini with Bernardin, Julie Blundetto with Design Point, Ann Campbell with Juniper Communities, Jennifer Swasey with KDA Architects, and Danielle Magnotta with KDA Architects.
Thank you, Stacy. And in just a little bit, you'll hear from each of those individuals as they have an opportunity to present their projects and the merits of each one of them. For those of you not familiar with SAGE, we are the Society for the Advancements of Gerontological Environments, a membership-based organization representing and promoting collaboration between all disciplines in the senior living industry. SAGE is pleased to present AIA-approved webinars every month. These webinars are free to SAGE members. Please visit sagefederation.org for information on SAGE membership. And I think you'll agree that with the networking and educational opportunities, conference discounts, and more, it's a fee of $95 well spent. This session is also scheduled to be part of the Environments for Aging Conference, August 28th through the 31st, 2021, at the Chattanooga Convention Center in Chattanooga, Tennessee. With 1,000+ industry professionals at the conference, it's an ultimate networking, education, and product sourcing event. You can see the newest products from hundreds of exhibitors and learn about the latest research, trends, and strategies in our industry to meet the needs of our aging population. You'll leave with new connections, new ideas for current and future projects, as well as CEUs. And this is very exciting considering the vaccine is starting to be distributed, and hopefully the conference will in fact still be in person. If you never attended the conference, we strongly suggest you consider it. While the content, connections, and inspiration you'll enjoy at EFA are well worth the financial investment to travel and to attend, SAGE members do enjoy a 10% saving off the registration, which more than pays for the SAGE membership. Learn more about attending or exhibiting at the EFA conference at their website. Everyone will be muted during this webinar. This webinar is also being recorded, and it will be made available to all the attendees at the conclusion of the presentation. Also, there is a Q&A button. If you see that on your screen and during the presentation, you'd like to ask those questions at the conclusion of all the presentations, we'll open up the Q&A for the panel and get their feedback today. We look forward to that. SAGE is an AIA-approved provider, and participants in this course are eligible for one AIA learning unit. Please note that you must be registered for and logged in to the webinar to receive AIA credit or a certificate of completion. So make sure you do that if you haven't. SAGE will report those credits earned by course attendees to AIA CES and provide certificates of completion within 1 week if requested. If you did not enter your member number or request a certificate of completion, please email info@sagefederation.org. The information presented in today's presentation is prohibited under copyright. Okay, so we have lots of information to cover this morning, and as I mentioned, a PDF will be made available through SAGE and also at the EFA conference website later in the year. The session content includes a review of the 2020 review process, presentations from each of the award winners, and then information about submitting your entry for 2021. And as I mentioned, questions at the end of today's event. The objectives are to learn about the dynamics of each project, their cost, and why these projects really stood out. Stacy will, at the conclusion of each presenter's project, will share with you some of the jury comments. You'll also obtain architectural and interior design ideas that impact quality of life and improve the overall experience of residents, staff, and guests at each community. Understand the importance of including operational factors when considering design decisions during a remodeling or renovation project, which right now is a very hot topic. While we're in this COVID pandemic moment, we're finding that many organizations are looking at CapEx and opportunities to improve their spaces. So what you see on the screen today might inspire you to have that discussion with your clients. You'll also gain tips for improving your project submission and jury considerations for the annual remodel renovation competition. Sage is a proud partner with Emerald going back to 1997. There continues to be a strong collaborative effort between Emerald and our group to recognize award-winning remodel and renovation projects that enhance existing environments and improve their market relevancy. Sage is now in its 13th year helping Emerald and EFA with the jury selection, the review, and awarding of the bronze, silver, and gold winners, and presenting the projects and their teams at the annual EFA conference and webinars like this. You'll find additional information about today's winners in the fall 2020 print edition of the EFA magazine, or please follow the link to efa.com at the bottom right of the screen. I will now turn the microphone over to Stacy Peters, who will briefly describe the 2020 review process and then introduce the award winners and their projects. Stacy?
Thank you, Rick. So we're going to go through the submittal process and overall process of the judging of the awards from 2020. We started the process off, 22 projects were entered, and they were reviewed by 16 jurors made up of senior living providers, architects, interior designers, industry consultants. We even had an architecture student on the jury this year. So round one of the competition, the projects were split between two groups of jurors to narrow down the projects to the top 8. Once those top 8 were selected, the jurors went on to round 2. We reviewed those top 8 and then came up with the top 3, which were named the gold, silver, and bronze award winners that you'll see today. All the winning projects that are represented here received editorial coverage in the fall 2020 issue of Environments for Aging magazine. And if there's anyone joining today that's interested in serving as a juror on the 13th annual EFA Remodel and Renovation competition, here is a link, which we will also list it throughout the presentation. I highly encourage people to volunteer for this opportunity. It was a great experience, and it's incredible being able to see the design work that's happening in the industry. Here you can see the list of the jurors that participated this past year. And as you can see, it's very much multidisciplinary and come from all backgrounds and experiences. Okay, without further ado, we'll go into and introduce our bronze award winner. So this project, Riddle Village Retirement Community Center, this was a renovation of the Governor's Inn and Chesapeake rooms, and it's located in Media, Pennsylvania. This is being presented by Derek Perini today, and Derek is with Bernardin. Derek?
Thank you, Stacy. First and foremost, I'd just like to thank, and on behalf of Bernard and Riddle Village, I'd really like to say that we are truly honored to receive this award and to participate in today's presentation and share our project with everybody here. So as Stacy had mentioned, the project consists of 2 dining room renovations as well as a dining lobby renovation. The dining rooms serve up to 380 independent living residents, and it's located in Media, Pennsylvania, which is probably about 15 miles outside of Philadelphia. anywhere from 10 to an hour commute, depending on the day and the time. The design team here consisted of Bernardin as the architecture and interior design, Alderson Engineering were the MEP engineers, Scopus Hospitality did the food service design, and on the owner's team, they were represented by the administration staff. They had marketing representatives as well as the food service staff and a resident committee of 6 residents. Next slide, please. So the existing floor plan in the red zone, you kind of see this is more of the lobby component to the dining venues. The area notated as number 3 is the Chesapeake dining room, which is more of their informal dining room. And number 7 on the floor plan is the formal dining room, which is also known as, I'm sorry, it's the governor's inn for the formal. So some of the challenges that we were kind of tasked with when we first approached this project was they were outdated from the interior design point of view, but in addition to that, you know, they were really struggling with the operational side of it, and they knew they just weren't meeting the market trends and the market demands that were out there as far as the food service approach. In addition, they're very rich in their colonial Williamsburg culture here. That's really a design style that they have infused throughout every building on their campus, and that was very important to them because that's really their identity and their culture. So our job was to kind of incorporate a new contemporary design into a much more traditional design, playing up the colonial Williamsburg culture that they currently had. Just some additional challenges they were tasked with was circulation. They were having a lot of issues with circulation between the residents and staff, particularly in the Chesapeake dining room, the area notated as number 4 on the plan. They had residents, you know, kind of bottlenecking with the staff as they were trying to replenish the buffet stations. And again, both dining rooms, as you can see, were pretty much just an open style dining room. There was nothing special about them. Just typical table service or buffet style service. Next slide, please. The way we address some of these challenges is that in the dining lobby area, we really kind of treated that as an extension of the dining rooms themselves. And it was no longer just a lobby, a corridor kind of component. That corridor is a main thoroughfare through the whole community. And to the lower left of the plan is the rest of the community center, as well as some independent living units. In the upper right-hand corner is the independent living as well and skilled care components. So we really wanted to reinvent that, the dining lobby areas, and most of that was really furniture and how we positioned the hostess station. We centralized the hostess station right there at number 3, just plants out right there. Yep, thank you. That would serve both dining rooms. And they knew it was a new venture with these dining rooms, so they really educated the residents that they had to come to the hostess station in order to be seated. They couldn't meander in through any of the other entry points to the dining rooms and expect to get a seat. So they took that challenge on themselves and they were willing to do that. In the Chesapeake, with the relocated hostess station, that did help eliminate a lot of the cross traffic. The planned north wall of the Chesapeake, we were able to pretty much open that wall entirely to get some borrowed light to come in from the lobby area and really kind of create a sense of engagement with the lobby and the dining room component. We converted the self-service buffet and counter into more of an open concept serving counter that was staffed action stations. And you can see that counter actually continued right through into the governor's inn. There are some pocket doors there that they would close off on a normal basis, but in the event that they had large activities or large events, they could open those doors and really serve or treat both of these dining venues as pretty much as if they were one. So they had a lot of flexibility back and forth depending on the event that was going on. As far as the seating, of course, we updated the seating, introduced some banquet seats, some booth seats, and then just your typical dining room type style tables and chairs in those areas. And the governor's inn, we really tried to want to break down that huge volume of a sea of tables and chairs. So we kind of created this monumental element that kind of sits right in the center of that dining room that provides some transparency to the exterior views without blocking the light, and really created some screen walls here and there to help create that room within a room environment, just to provide some privacy within the dining room components. Next slide, please. So this is a view of the original Chesapeake. This was a secondary entrance, but they found that residents were really starting to use this more, and which this was what really was creating the bottleneck. They had residents coming in this entry point, as well as an entry point kind of just off the camera down to your left. So it's becoming a real challenge for them. So I think the picture kind of speaks 1,000 words. You know, it was relatively dated, you know, dark colors, very uninspiring colors, definitely not on trend. You can kind of start to see some of the detailing that was continuous throughout the whole entire community, as far as the crown moldings and the baseboards. And this is just a touch of some of the detailing they had, but that was, again, that was very important to them, is to maintain some of that as we went through the renovations. Next slide, please. For the new approach to this, the exact same view, we actually opened up pretty much as that wall as we possibly could. And by doing that, we wanted to create some kind of feature at that space that could be appreciated from both sides, either from the Chesapeake or from the lobby side. So we incorporated the decorative fireplace, which was dual-sided. And we thought about the materials that we were using on that. And this is where we really studied the materials we were using. We wanted contemporary materials, but we thought, how can we use these materials that were more historic as well? So we wanted to use historic materials, but in a contemporary form and a contemporary approach. As examples, as the fireplace itself, you know, it's a contemporary product. It's a ceramic tile, but it looks like marble, which is marble, as we all know, is a very historic product. So we wanted to work with the marble aspect, but keep it relatively clean lined and sleek. We worked with the rather traditional carpet patterns, but in that approach, we actually infused, a little hard to see in this image here, but we infused a lot of pops of bright, non-traditional coloring in the carpeting, as well as the fabrics. And some of the textures, we tried to kind of stay away from more the traditional patterning of the fabrics in these areas. Of course, we updated the lighting, used the lighting to really help anchor certain areas within these spaces. And we introduced furnishings, you can see off to the left, where they're more of a dining style approach it's mainly in the lobby, but it actually supports the dining component as well. So if they did have some overflow, they could pull people out into the lobby and have them sit in those locations more on a casual format. Next slide, please. So moving over to the governor's, which was the formal dining room. As you can see, it's a very, very dark space. Again, not really inspiring, there really wasn't adequate lighting, but here you can really get a sense of some of the architectural detailing that is throughout the community. And they're very proud of that detailing. It was an investment they made many years ago, and we really wanted to honor that and respect that. So, you know, that was one of our main goals, is to say, you know, how can we work with this detailing and keep it, but yet make it contemporary. Next slide, please. So an image from the same view here, you know, we really used lighting. We used lighting to our advantage as much as we possibly could. So we wanted to accent those architectural details with the columns and the pilasters. The fluted columns really pop in this area. In the kind of the background, you can see the monumental element. We kind of plunked literally right in the middle of the dining room. And the idea was that it would almost feel like it's kind of intruding on the traditional aspect of the space, but it's more of a contemporary approach. And based on the materials we used, it kind of tied it back to the traditionalism of the environment. Again, the carpet, it's a very, very traditional pattern, but we really tried to infuse more contemporary colors into those patterns. Additional things we did here is, of course, we updated the can lights, the lighting in general. We used the lighting to help identify certain seating zones, cove lighting, which is always beneficial in these environments. So the lighting really played a huge part in our approach to the design for these spaces. Just off to the right of this, of the photographer here, there's actually the chef's action station, which the residents love the feedback we get is that they love to be able to interact with the chef. And the chef loves it just as much. He looks forward to the dinners with these residents. During this whole process, the chef was kind of really, he was kind of over the moon about the whole thing. He was so excited about redeveloping the menus and getting the residents involved in that whole interaction aspect of the project. Next slide, please. So this existing image of the Chesapeake, this room here probably had the largest transformation. The whole wall to the right, you'll see in the next slide, is where we actually eliminated that wall entirely. But again, just very, very dated, very uninspiring. And a lot of residents said it was very cavern-like, kind of a bowling alley effect. And, you know, it's so true. You know, next slide, please. So the new approach to the Chesapeake, again, we eliminated that wall, opened up that that whole wall. So there was some engagement with the lobby, which we felt was really important. We wanted residents to be able to kind of get a sneak peek of what was going on, but yet not just have full access to walk in to the Chesapeake, kind of poking their head in to see if their friends were part of the party, if they wanted to join or not. But some additional things we did in here, again, we upgraded the lighting, use the pendants to really anchor some of these different types of seating. We have in here, we actually have banquettes, which are kind of off to the left of the camera. And then we had the booths, and then your typical general seating at the tables and chairs. You know, lighting played a huge part in this, not only in the types of lighting, but the aesthetic values of the lights. You know, like we incorporate contemporary drum shades, but we took it a step further and just incorporate a more traditional crystal pendant from that shade that kind of played back to the traditionalism of the community. It's similar to the light fixtures to the left. It's a typical candelabra style fixture, but yet it's more of the contemporary version where it's more of a sphere versus a typical chandelier that you would normally see. Additional things we update here, again, seating across the board, all the finishes throughout. Next slide. Actually, I think, yes. So in conclusion, to that project, you know, the one thing that the interior aesthetic was really the challenge for us, is kind of mend these two totally different styles together, to make sure the community did not lose their culture. And they were very appreciative of that. That was the one thing that we really embraced moving into this, not only from the design team, but from the community as well. You know, how can we really make this not lose our identity as we go through this process? And the success of this project, I really think the underlying factor is that we had the opportunity to really nurture an honest and open relationship with the resident committee, as well as the design team and the administration team. We're very candid with each other, you know, and very respectful at the same time, but it really gave us a true sense of where we were going, because we were all constantly reminding ourselves what the ultimate goal was at the end of the day. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present this project and to showcase Rural Village to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. An absolute incredible transformation. I think one thing that I found really interesting in a previous conversation, Derek mentioned that they spent time actually dining in the venues as well, just to really get a firsthand impression of what was working, what was not working, and they were able to incorporate those details into the design. I thought that was a great, interesting feature. So some of the jury comments regarding this project, the renovation was able to delicately balance the historical surroundings while marrying and updated yet classical elements to improve the flow and functions to enhance resident life. A great dining repositioning of old to new. I love the finish selections, and they broke the mold for what we typically see in senior living, while still giving it the classic timeless look. The design team accomplished the goal of preserving the past and bringing in modern design elements to add life to the spaces. Creative ceiling layouts and a great variety of seating options within the larger space makes for a more engaging dining experience. A beautiful variety of furniture selections and use of color in the fabrics. This transformed space provides a dining environment that would rival any five-star restaurant. And I agree. And then last comment, the renovation not only achieved the wow factor, but the design team did a wonderful job of breaking up the seating groups. It's difficult not to look at these projects through the social distancing lenses. And this project does a great job at creating flexibility for the residents to have some barriers. So congratulations. Okay, to move on and announce our Silver Award winner. Project is Juniper Village at Bucks County. It's located in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. And today this is being presented by Julie Blundetto with Design Point and operator Ann Campbell with Juniper Communities. So I will let them now introduce their project.
Thank you, and thank you on behalf of the whole project team. We're honored to be recognized. Juniper Village at Bucks County, like Stacy said, is located in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. It's a it's a bigger CCRC. It has 272 units, was built in the early 1980s. Juniper acquired the property in 2016 with bright ideas for how we wanted to renovate. The goals for the project really is to work on first impressions, looking at the amenity and dining offerings, really giving some more choice for dining for the residents that live there. And then one of the other goals for the project was to drive foot traffic through the community to help with some issues that we had with sales. So creating new destination spaces for units that may have been less desirable on the outskirts of the community. And I'll turn it over to Julie.
Thank you. So the renovation effort began soon after Juniper acquired the property, and it encompassed almost all the common spaces for the community, including some outdoor improvements. But our submission here focused on 3 new dining venues that were created, 2 within the main building and 1 in a more remote section of the campus. Next slide, please. So here you see our existing floor plan. Starting with the plan on the left, the Village Gateway serves as the main entry to the community, and its central lobby connects to a roof deck beyond. This building is in the center of the campus and houses the majority of resident amenities, including a large main dining room where residents had multiple meals each day. To the left of the main entry, shown here in green, was the former sales office suite beyond a reception desk that felt like a security checkpoint. We saw this area as prime real estate and took the opportunity to recapture that space for resident use. The darker blue area in this plan was an open sitting room that didn't serve any particular function, and we wanted to drive programming to better activate that space too. The plan to the far right was the location for our 3rd new destination, which involved removing several apartments and transforming the underutilized lounge space. And in the key plan to the lower right, you can see the proximity of those 2 locations. The 32 Club being at the number 2, and that area of the campus was what Ann mentioned. It was difficult for them to sell those apartments on that side of the community. There just wasn't a lot going on over there, and there was a need to create more community space that would be attractive to drive people to that area. Next slide. In our new layout, looking again at the space in green, you can see we opened the walls of the former office suite and created a new grab-and-go cafe with an open flow from the lobby, moving the reception desk into the lobby as a central concierge. We also captured some outdoor space to create a small terrace along the side of the building, which lets the cafe seating flow outside in nicer weather. The former sitting room was converted to a bar lounge, which was on the wish list among the residents. You can see here that the lounge overlooks the landscaped roof deck, and its location is convenient to the main dining room. The plan on the right shows the upper level of the new 32 Club with a communicating stair leading to the new restaurant below. Next slide. This picture shows the former sales office suite was very enclosed and wasn't making the best use of the space near the main entry. Next slide. In contrast, the new cafe space is open, bright, and welcoming. The newsroom cafe theme reflects the idea that it's a place where people are coming throughout the day, whether it's an employee grabbing an early morning coffee on their way in, or residents enjoying an afternoon snack when they pick up their mail for the day, which we hoped would become another type of social experience. The location is convenient and prominent when you enter the building, and the residents can look out at the main entrance without sitting directly in the lobby. Next slide, please. Also adjacent to the main lobby, the former sitting room was cluttered and not arranged well to encourage any conversation or social activities. The new Oak Lounge is now a place for evening cocktails and piano entertainment, but is welcoming throughout all times of the day. Next slide. It's close to the main dining room, so the intention was also that it could function as a pre or post mealtime social space, and the residents could put in orders for appetizers or desserts from the bar, and it could be served from the main kitchen. We paired some classic bar details and the richness of wood tones with some more contemporary selections in materials and lighting. Next slide, please. Moving on to our final before image, this picture shows what the social space was like in the more remote section of the community before the renovations. There were some library shelves and seating areas, as well as game tables and a craft space, but it was so enclosed and poorly lit with very low ceilings and almost no natural lighting in the interior spaces. You can see the resident rooms along the outside wall, which we ultimately removed and opened that section of the floor to create a 2-story dining room with a large span of windows. Next slide. The new 32 Club is a destination restaurant with an open kitchen concept. This view is from the upper level looking out over the dining area. As you can see, it was a dramatic transformation, and that generated a lot of excitement among both residents and staff. This location also has a separate outside entrance, so it's well suited to accommodate functions that bring in members of the surrounding community. With that, I'll turn it back over to Anne to share how these spaces are being enjoyed.
Thanks, Julie. When we looked at programming each of the spaces, it was really exciting because we were able to do new fun things. The Oak Lounge really became the new venue for live music. Like Julie said, there's a piano bar in there, and we were able to do series and of different types of musicians and jazz nights and all of that. And it really opened it up for that, became a hotspot. The newsroom cafe, which was the space by the front of the building that Julie talked about, that we really haven't done any programming with that. It is not, we're not programming, but what it has turned into is a gathering area. It's right by the front of the building. It's created vibrancy as people walk into the building. We've heard from prospective residents that it really has helped them imagine themselves living there and visiting with friends, because people are having a good time in that space. The 32 Club, which is pictured now, this the program that we were able to do here is pretty cool because they have there's an outside entrance to this area. And it allows for an event to span 3 different spaces on 3 floors. So for instance, we may have an event where we would have a first floor check-in and cocktails. The second floor, we would have dinner, and then we would move to the 3rd floor for dancing and dessert. So it's been really fun to think of ways to program. One of the things which we certainly didn't expect, but it worked out really well for us, we were actually able to do our COVID vaccine clinics in this space because it was so large, and it really made it more festive. We were very excited. So it made the COVID vaccine clinic a party, which was pretty fantastic. Our impact on our residents and our associates, when construction was done, I think that the number one thing is that everybody is very proud of the space. They're proud of the beauty that was created. Some of the things that we really had to work on with our associates, though, we had to change mindset on dining, and we had to do some change management for the new workflows. So for instance, we have, and really that was for residents and associates, we have different dining menus in each venue. So really people are, they are using the community more. You know, they're not going to that same dining room every day. They're walking through the community and they're able to get different variety of foods through the day. Our impact, the impact that we had on sales, again, people can imagine themselves living in this space. It is lit up. And, you know, even during the times of COVID where we had people in the space, but we didn't have as much going on, people would say, oh, I can imagine that you would do this here. They were actually telling us how the spaces were being used, you know, prospective residents, which I thought was really great. And the destination made for the end units, we were then able to charge a regular market rate, and they became more desirable because people wanted to live near that space. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Anne and Julie. I think one thing that really stood out to me as a juror for this is all of this was completed for $162 a square foot. So they did an incredible job moving the dollars around, and it really is a huge impact. So some of the jury comments for the Silver Award winner: a major transformation. The design team did a great job creating a nice variety of dining experiences. The transformation of each space was accomplished through well-selected and limited architectural intervention, which kept the cost low. The interior design is modest, yet has a big impact. The creation of the two-story space adds drama that is not typically seen for this cost. Well done. An excellent use of lighting and materials. Creating the three-story space was an amazing use of architecture to transform the old space. Of all the projects, this to me was the single best repurposing of a space. The before and after photos for this project are remarkable. Just by refreshing and reorganizing the common areas, the designers and organization were able to not only achieve a great environment, but more amenity offerings for the residents. So congratulations. Okay, our final entry today is our Gold Award winner. The project is Cranes Mill at West Caldwell, and this was a renovation of their wellness and aquatic areas. The project is located in West Caldwell, New Jersey, and is submitted by KDA Architects. And today, Jennifer Swasey and Danielle Magnotta will introduce the project to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Magnotta, and as Stacy said, I'll be presenting today with Jennifer Swasey. We're excited to be part of this presentation and to be recognized with such a group of talented designers. We're proud to have served as both the architect and the interior designer for the project, and we're excited to share it with you today. Situated on an expansive property in a desirable suburb not far from New York City, Cranes Mill at West Caldwell is a life plan community with a thriving and active resident population. Constructed in 1997, and like many well-established communities, its aging Commons building increasingly failed to reflect the vitality of its occupants. Of particular concern to the owner were the areas encompassing the health and wellness program, which suffered from poorly lit, cramped spaces. Program features such as the gym and physical therapy often had to compete for square footage. When space was no longer available for expanding health services, such as the visiting doctors and specialists, the owner was left with no choice but to sacrifice resident apartments to house those services, which were located far from the wellness center. With a mission grounded in a holistic approach to the quality of life and well-being, Cranes Mill understood the need for a health and wellness center that reflected and supported this belief. In response, our design team presented plans for a building expansion and renovation with distinct goals to provide the critical square footage needed, with optimal space adjacencies and with a prominent design that embraced a connection to activity, daylight, and the outdoors. Next slide, please. The main entrance to the Commons building is located at the southwest corner of the image, just out of view. The light blue color indicates a corridor space which connects the town center lobby and food venues, shown to the left in gray, to the resident apartments, shown to the right in red and gray. The gym, indicated in green, is located to the north of the main corridor space and was previously shared by both the exercise and physical therapy programs. Notice the location of the doorways. I'll talk about those in just a minute. Located north of the gym in blue is the pool. This area is easily identified by the sawtooth exterior wall, which borders the courtyard for the main dining venue. Shown in red to the right are 4 apartment units, which were identified for conversion into the new health center. Next slide, please. So to start with this, I'd like to point to the red dashed line down the center of the plan. This indicates where the project spanned 2 building types with different uses and constructions. We were able to maintain required fire separation in these areas while still enabling connection between spaces. To the right of the image, you'll see 2 new covered entrances were added, one from within the campus courtyard to the north, and the other provides outpatient access from the main parking lot to the south. A doorway was also added between the health center corridor, shown in blue, and the apartments to the right, shown in gray. And this provides residents with privacy and marks the transition between public and private zones. Where the 4 apartments were previously, the new health center is shown in light green. There now exists a concierge desk, waiting area, and visiting doctor's offices south of the corridor, and the home health coordinator and occupational and physical therapy room to the north. The newly designated wellness center, shown in green and blue to the left, is now expanded to include the existing pool and gym, a new exercise studio to the north center of the plan, and a fitness transition zone between the 2. The addition also squared off the pool and provided a cozy nook to relocate the spa tub. The new exercise studio provides much needed open space and is a multifunctional room that is shared by both the health and wellness centers. Additionally, the pool, exercise studio, and therapy spaces all have direct access to the courtyard. And so the 3 spaces we'll be showing you today are the pool, the gym, and the new health center concierge area. Next slide, please. This is a photo of the gym before. You can see the gym entrance prior to the renovation. Although strategically positioned adjacent to the town center to the left of this image, the dark entry was not inviting or appealing. Additionally, the space within was bisected by circulation to the pool beyond, preventing much needed square footage from being fully utilized. The gym and physical therapy program shared the space and struggled to create privacy for multiple users. You can see the screen panels just inside to the left, which offered a less than ideal privacy solution. Next slide, please. First and foremost, the issue of space and functionality needed to be addressed. This photo was taken from the exact same location as the before shot. You'll see we shifted the entrance to one side, returning usable space to the gym. By utilizing patterned glass and a storefront system, we were able to enliven the corridor with color and activity, provide wayfinding and signage opportunities, and create a feeling of openness between spaces. The dramatic full glass partition creates a prominent entry and also serves to bring natural daylight from the exterior rooms into the once cavernous corridor. To further correct the inadequate space, the physical therapy program was located down the hall as part of the conversion of 4 apartment units into the new health center. So this space strictly serves to provide the gym function. And with that, I'll turn things over to Jen to talk about the next couple spaces.
Hello, everyone. The slide that you're seeing in front of you shows a picture of the pool before. The challenges of the pool were numerous. The space suffered from a lack of adequate daylight and improper artificial lighting. Areas for gathering or hosting family and guests were cramped and limited. Reclaimed wood beams and aging HVAC ductwork made the ceiling feel intrusive, while small skylights produced way too much glare. Overall, the space felt dated and more like an afterthought instead of a feature. Next slide, please. And here you're seeing the picture of the pool after. The reclaimed wood beam and purlin system was the main structure for the room and supported the roof above, so we knew it needed to remain. A technique called soda blasting was used, and that treats and visually lightens the wood tone by removing years of tarnish from the humid chlorinated environment. To further remedy the oppressive nature of the ceiling, and with the help of our team at Alderson Engineering, all mechanical and electrical equipment was relocated to the exterior wall above a drywall soffit. And the most dramatic change occurred by replacing the roof above the pool with a translucent skylight system that provides an abundance of natural light without glare. New floor-to-ceiling windows further illuminate the space and reinforce the connection to nature. Additionally, the team worked with the lighting consultant, Lighting Design Collaborative, to create a unique ambiance by installing LED lights above the purlins, which illuminate the skylight system. In the evening, this feature, it's really amazing. It emits a soft glow that can be seen from the main corridor and adjacent courtyard, really allowing for that space to be utilized at any time of day. To address the spatial constraints, pushing out and reconfiguring the exterior wall allowed the hot tub to be relocated to a more private area, which is just to the right of the photo, and expanded the pool's perimeter for more gathering. To bring more visual warmth to the room and to play on the expansion's architectural geometry, cedar boards were applied to the walls in a horizontal pattern and exposed columns as well. The cedar was a nod to the wellness aspect of the community, as well as a complementing tone to the existing beams. The old cracked concrete floors were resurfaced with granular rubber flooring. The system adds safety in that water will not collect on the porous surface, and it also contributes to the room's acoustic controls. To balance the dramatic ceiling and glass features, dynamic waterproof murals were installed at the far end of the room, providing another source of color and dimension. And of course, what can't be seen in the photos, but was of considerable concern, was addressing the room's acoustics. Working with K2 Acoustics out of Colorado, the team identified opportunities to reduce the room's reverberation issues by installing acoustic panels at the perimeter of the room and dropping the ceiling height along the exterior wall. The natural acoustic properties of the sloped skylight system and rubber flooring mentioned before also contributed to the solutions that now provide proper sound control. Next slide, please. Here are some existing photos of the health center before. And pictured on the left of the is the view of the corridor outside of the 4 apartments that we talked about previously that were selected to be converted into the health center. The low ceiling heights posed a challenge to making a new public space that would feel open, bright, and welcoming. Also needing to be addressed was the noticeable change that occurred underfoot when transitioning from the Commons building, which is slab on grade construction, to the residential wing, which consists of modular wood frame construction over crawl space. The transition between the 2 buildings can be seen in the lower right photo, and where you can see the flooring material changes from tile to carpet. The top right photo is where the institutional corridor began, just outside of the pool area. Next slide, please. And here you have the after slide of the health center. Pictured on the left, Residents and outpatients are greeted by a modern concierge desk, which greets them upon entering the health center from 2 new covered porches. A waiting area in front supports the doctors and therapy suites, which are shown in the spaces just beyond the concierge desk. The long, dark corridor is now a brightly lit passage guiding users from the health center to the wellness and common areas. A series of brightly colored cased openings visually shorten the corridor length, while dramatic murals and alcoves indicate points of transition. The sunflower mural, which is shown there on your left, and the white flowering tree blossom mural, which is shown on the top right, were carefully selected from artist photographs and applied to high impact wall protection material. Vibrant and uplifting artwork, which is shown in the bottom right photo there, adds visual interest to the renovated connecting link as well. The floor construction was stabilized during renovations, and the new floor finishes provide stability underfoot. And the ceiling design creates interest in the illusion of height. One challenge was finding fixtures with a low profile that could provide correct light levels. While dropping the center of the ceiling gave texture while providing the ceiling height needed for recessed linear fixtures. And finally, light, bright colors and the use of wood tones invoke a feeling of nature. The same glass patterns used at the gym entrance, shown previously as also being used behind the concierge desk, creating visual continuity between spaces. Next slide, please. Oh, and Stacy, before you go over the jury remarks, we just wanted to say that we were really happy to be here today and sharing what we've learned through this process. We'd just like to thank the jurors and congratulate the other winners, and thank you to Rick and Stacy for hosting today.
Thank you, Jennifer and Danielle. Pretty incredible transformation there. It's amazing what just lightening up those beams did and allowing that natural light into the space. Incredible. So here are some of the jury comments that were given for our Gold Award winner. The pool area is a remarkable transformation. The colors and murals throughout are a fresh way to enliven the spaces. The art glass in the storefront at the gym entrance is a great way to make use of the new light at the pool. The transformation of the aquatic center is effective and cheerful. The designers did a great job of introducing natural light and creating an inviting space. The transformation of the wellness interest and pool area is stunning. Love how the entry provides some transparency, but is still open by providing the skylight over the pool and the expansion with full height windows. The lighting is much improved. Reprogramming the clinic and therapy area to better utilize the pool area was an excellent operational improvement. The transformation was spectacular. The overall project gives the impression that wellness and health are a priority at this community and not an afterthought. And then last, overall, a very creative design solution to transform this space into an active destination that supports the community's mission. So congratulations again to all of our award winners. The slides that you've seen here today came directly from these groups' submissions. So for 2021, we are encouraging everyone out there listening to enter your projects into the competition. So this lists some of the milestone dates for the 13th annual Remodel and Renovation competition. Reservations are due on the 22nd of this month, and then the presentation entries are due on April 2nd. So we really encourage teams to enter, and just remind you that the winners will receive special recognition at the EFA Expo in August and coverage of the projects in the summer 2021 issue of Environments for Aging. So I'm going to go through just some good tips that the jurors put together that will make for a great submission. So the first thing that is very important is to provide a very legible floor plan. We want to, as a juror, we want to be able to see the room names very, in bold. We don't want to have to hunt for them. And also, submitting a before and after floor plan helps the jurors really understand where all the content is coming from. So we encourage you to include really good pictures, use the images to support your narrative, and provide captions on those pictures. So on the before images, make sure the images directly relate to the improved areas and their changes. It's very helpful when they're taken from the same direction, so that it's easy to understand the before and after. And then the after photos, we absolutely look for the wow factor and or the design link to the original program. Make sure you define the difference maker and the impact on the residents. Like what makes this project stand out as a great submission? You also want to offer how the operator has benefited from the improved design, and then submit the narrative story written by the project team member, or at least reviewed by the project team member. It's pretty obvious as a juror when an outside marketing person has written it. I think the designers, architects, design team have just the little ins and outs that really stand out to the jury. So we encourage you to do that.
Thank you, Stacy, for walking us through the juror comments from each of the award-winning projects. And I have looked at these projects since they were first submitted up until today, and there are so many design features that just, stand out as well moments. So congratulations to all the award winners. And year after year, the submittals just keep getting better and better. And we hope many of you on this call will consider submitting your project. So this concludes the AIA CES education portion of the course. We're not done yet. We have a few minutes with the teams to answer questions that were provided to us. And if you have yet to ask your questions, if you will, just hold your cursor. I think in the top left, you'll see a Q&A button. And please enter that question in now. So also on this screen, you'll see contact information for each of the award-winning teams. Should you have any questions for them individually, please reach out to them directly. We're asking the presenters now to turn on their cameras, and we'll start to ask some questions. So just one final reminder, this entire slide deck will be available. That was one of the questions that popped up. So you will get copies of this information, and included in the PDF and not shown today is the narrative provided by each of the teams. So you can see how they further define their project. So Stacy, would you like to ask the first couple of questions, please?
Sure. Thank you, Rick. So first question, what was the construction and FFE budgets for these projects? Derek, do you want to start out and list those if you have that information in front of you?
Sure. The construction, the cost per square foot. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I was on mute. Sorry. The construction cost per square foot was $241. Again, this was a renovation. There was no new build to this component. And I'm going from memory here, but I think the FF&E budget was around $300,000.
Thank you. Julie or Ann?
Sure. So what we presented today was a construction budget of about 2.3 million. And that was part of a larger phased renovation. As I mentioned, that the total project was around 9 million. And those are just construction costs. I don't offhand have the FF&E budget numbers.
Thank you. And then Jennifer or Danielle?
Yeah, so this project was just around 4 million for us, and that was renovations and additions. So there was some new work there. Jen, do you happen to know the FF&E budget offhand?
Yeah, we came in at about 8% of the total construction costs, or roughly, it was like $325,000 for the FF&E.
Thank you. Rick, do you want to take the next one?
Sure. So along with the construction budgets were questions about the FF&E budgets for those projects. And, just in a general sense, as you approach communities like the ones that we saw, where did your numbers start and where did it land? In other words, did you come in with the operator and say, we can do this at $20, $50 a square foot? And at the end of the day, how did you help those operators develop programs? Talk a little bit about your process and what were your final budgets. So may we start with Jennifer, Daniela, and get your feedback, and then we'll work backwards from there. Danielle, you may be on mute.
Oh, sorry, was that just for the FF&E budget, or were you asking?
Yeah, the
for both?
question, the specific question was what were the construction and FF&E budgets for the projects? I think you've answered the construction portion, but the second part was related to FF&E and your feedback there, please.
Sure. So actually, the FF&E budget is usually based off of an estimate that we derive by assuming some conditions. The preliminary furniture plans feed into how we develop our FF&E budgets. We assign a value to the level that we understand that the owner wants to have installed. And we've been fortunate in that as projects have stayed relatively within scope, the project amount that we've assumed would be the value for the FF&E stays pretty much on target.
Julie, would you like to answer that question? And then we'll ask Derek to do the same.
Sure. Yeah, we didn't have a specific budget starting out in the project for the FF&E. We had the maximum total for the construction costs. We submitted as in partnership with the operator, Juniper, because they were very involved through the design and budgeting and planning process, down to working with us on selecting furniture and working to make sure that fit into their operating costs.
With our approach, we provide an FF&E budget through every phase of the project. And obviously, initially, it's usually just a percentage of the construction without really knowing that much of what the owner's looking for. But once we get into SD phase, we start seeing the floor plans coming together, furniture starting to be dumped into the plan. We start itemize every room, every piece of furniture, every piece of artwork we might consider. We throw in allowances for accessories, decorative accessories, and then we continue just to fine tune that number as we're going through the process. Once we get through construction documents, pretty much our FF&E budget is established, and we know that's kind of the target we're looking for. That's the number we need to meet. We also do include I forgot to mention in the SD phase, we also do just include a contingency because there's so many unknowns. And as we get through the different phases, that contingency dollar percentage drops, the more we fine tune the program and the owner's specific needs.
Thank you. There's another question here related to construction costs, and I would probably ask these very detailed type of questions to go to each of the individual designers. As you can see, their email addresses are available. But some questions interesting is, what year was the construction pricing developed? So, when we think about projects that we're reviewing today, submitted in spring of 2020, they were completed probably in sometime in 2019 and 2020. And before that, those budgets are established. The person who asked the question went on to mention that lumber and copper, individual materials are just skyrocketing right now. So did you see, Derek, we'll start with you. Did you see early on any bust in the early GMP? If so, how was your team asked to adapt to it? So working with the full, architectural and general contractor teams as an interior designer, what was your process for keeping the project on budget?
We initially we did see a little bit of a bust, but it wasn't really necessarily due to the industry and material cost. It was more of a lack of understanding of the program up front. But we were able to quickly recover from that and kind of, reprioritize some components to the dining. There actually was another component to our project that kind of got pushed to the side, which is actually under construction right now. But they got to the point where they were biting off more than they could chew at the time, so they decided to phase the construction. And the project that I presented as well, that was 2 phases. The original design was done as one, but the construction was done in 2 different phases. And I think, if I remember correctly, the construction documents, we completed those in 2017, with construction started immediately thereafter. So fortunately, we didn't have to deal with what is going on in the economy right now, with prices of materials being all over the place.
Before our other panelists answer the question, I meant to say earlier, we have gone over our time limit. We appreciate those that are staying on. We encourage you to stay on, and we'll probably go another 5-10 minutes, depending on the types of questions we get. This presentation is also being recorded, and it will be made available to you as well. So you'll get both the PDF and the recorded version. So thank you, Derek, for your answer. I'd like to give others a chance to answer the questions as well. Jennifer, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I can hop in there. So I do want to note, if you remember the floor plan for our slide, the Health and Wellness Center was actually part of a phase project that also included a full renovation of their administration suite, which was shown in yellow on the existing plans. So some of our cost was in that, but there wasn't a full scale renovation there. It was, reconfiguring a few partitions and getting their finishes and lighting up to date. I would say, so we worked with a construction manager on this project. And so we were touching base with them at every point in the design process to make sure we were staying on budget. And as you can imagine, we were reevaluating a little bit at each phase, and there was a little bit of value engineering going on. But I would say the bigger budgetary items, I guess, that we had to address came up once construction started. And I think we've all seen that with any renovation, there's always some kind of surprises that you find when walls and ceilings are open. So given the fact that we were working across multiple construction types, and we started construction in November, so we were going into, trying to do an addition during the winter, we were fighting against the weather a bit with that. But overall, I would say there were no major surprises as far as the design and construction budget during the design process.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the feedback that you're giving us as a developer and also as a consultant. It's our role to explain that. The program develops, costs are always changing. So I really do like this question. And then you want to have that expertise in the room that can help mitigate the impact that any outside forces are having, or internally when the organization says, this is something else that we'd like to add. Being a member of SAGE, going to EFA, this allows the design teams, all of you on this call, to really learn from best practices, standards of excellence. That's partly why we do this, is to inspire others to think as creatively as this team is, and that just raises the level of what the senior living industry really is. I do want to jump into another question, and this is an important one. As Stacy mentioned throughout the process, we look to you, your design teams, to create the narrative, provide the images. And during COVID, a lot of teams were unable to get into those spaces. So jurors this year understand that, and they'll take that into consideration. So we'll issue a statement on that. I appreciate the person that asked, Jennifer Fleming, who asked the question. And here in the next day or two, in the next week, we want to clarify a few things. So great question. I want to go back to an earlier component when Stacy was talking about that difference maker. I'd like to hear each team say, what do you think the difference maker was? What was it in your design? We heard from Ann and Juniper what her answer was, but what do you think, Julie? Is it the same thing? Did you did you see something else in the design that was it? That you just felt like this is a difference maker?
I apologize. My internet just cut out for a second. I completely missed that question.
Okay, so the difference maker component, something that's a wow factor, if you will. It could be something visually, it could be something in the program. What did your team do to these spaces that we saw? And this is a question for all three of the teams. What would you say was the difference maker in your design for the organization and ultimately for the residents?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it wasn't just a refresh, but it was really trying to rethink all of the spaces and change things up as far as, working with programming and things like that. The biggest wow factor, I would say, would be the 32 Club, just because that was the most dramatic transformation. And even being part of the design team from the very beginning, still, when you step back and look at the before and after pictures, like, you're kind of reminded of how much it actually transformed the project.
I think our jurors would all agree with you. Jennifer and Danielle, what was that sort of it moment? It might be different for each one of you, so we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. I know for me, it's definitely the skylight in the pool. I know when we first kind of started tossing that idea around, we kind of looked at each other and thought, are we crazy for trying to do this? Just, looking at the ceiling before and trying to work around those giant reclaimed wood members, we were just trying to figure out how to make the scale of that space, workable. The ceiling in the before just felt like it was looming over you. So being able to bring in the natural light and get that height in that space, even if we didn't have the beautiful materials and everything else that went along with it, I think that made a world of difference for the pool.
Great.
I echo similar sentiments as Danielle. I think, I think as a design community, we all place a really high value on access to natural light, and that this was no exception. The quality of the light in that space and the ability of that light to then filter into areas within the building that didn't have access to natural light before, I think it has such a huge impact. And I think also from a programming standpoint, when we were there originally meeting with the client and the healthcare professionals traveling the long distances to get to where they were using a resident room as a doctor's suite, imagining what it must be like to be someone in their 80s or 90s traveling long distances who aren't feeling well and are looking for help, just knowing that the reconfiguration allowed for their lives to be easier because of the changes that were made there, I think was also very rewarding as part of the process.
That's great. Derek, what would you like to say about your community? And then we're probably going to ask one more question and wrap it up. Derek, you're on mute. Give Derek a second. Derek, you're on mute. There we go.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
It's only a matter of time before I did that. It's with our project, it was a little bit different. I think the main thing with us was the process. Obviously the finished design came as a result of the process, but during the process, when you're going into doing a renovation, particularly environments that are occupied, there's a lot of resistance a lot of times, from the residents, and it's human nature. We just don't like change, and they move into these communities for a reason because they love the way it looks. They don't think it needs to be updated, but they're not necessarily understanding the marketability for the future. And we really had to take a step back and kind of do a lot of education with not only the administrative team, but also the resident committee. And we really focused on that and got them engaged in that. And it was even to the point where they were reminding us of that during the process. And I thought it was great, and I think the end result was just literally, it was a good collaboration that, again, as I mentioned before, that it was, we were very candid with one another, constantly reminding each other. So it's the end result was really, came out of that process, the open communication.
Excellent. Well, I thought we had more time for questions, but being respectful to our panelists and those who attended, thank you so much for the submissions, for your time today. It's been a great process for Stacy and me to get to learn more about each of the projects. Again, we encourage everyone to please submit your projects for 2021. And if you have time, we always like to learn more about how we can do things better. If you don't mind completing a survey afterwards. Big round of applause to each of the teams, and we commend you on the work that we did, and we need more of it, and we ultimately do this for the residents we serve and for the staff members whose responsibility is to deliver those best services. You guys did an exceptional job from the board of SAGE and all of us. Thank you so much. And that concludes our presentation.